Welcome to LTU Perspectives, a journey into the experiences, stories, and adventures at Lawrence Technological University. A student-hosted podcast filled with insights and the intriguing stories that embody the LTU spirit.
Welcome to another episode of LTU Perspectives. I'm your host, Gabrielle Williams, and I'm here with
Luke Yachman.
And today we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence. So to start off the conversation, I kind of want to talk about how AI is going to affect the youth and education moving forward and how it's affecting education right now. I know speaking with some teachers, I've heard that they have a lot of concerns and complaints when it comes to teaching in the classroom or giving out assignments. You know, AI has, become a big thing, and most kids have access to the internet or any kind of AI software. And so, I don't know, it seems like it might cause some problems moving forward in the way students are learning. What do you think about that?
I think it will definitely cause problems.
Yeah. I know when I was in high school, and even before high school, bring it back to elementary school, you had to learn how to write for yourself, do the research, you have vocabulary tests and all of that. And it just seems like now teachers have been noticing that students aren't doing the work for themselves. I don't know. Have you used any AI when it comes to the work you've done, or was it around when you were in high school?
It wasn't really around for my high school days. And no, I don't really use it for school.
Right. And so pretty much we had to do the work ourselves. We had to do the research, write everything out, come up with the concepts, the conclusion and everything. And we had Google, right? But AI, it's almost like information is right at the palm of your hands, right? And if you don't feel like, one thing about our generation, I will say, is we have a lot of things easier than some of the generations before us.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have the type of technology that's being put out today. And I mean, honestly, that was a benefit to them because you had to learn and problem solve for yourself. And so when you see that this technology is becoming pretty popular amongst the youth, it brings in to question what will we see in the future as far as how people will problem solve once they become adults. Will you be able to work in the fields that you're pursuing, or will you rely on AI to do the work for you? Because if you become dependent on it, that could become, I could see it becoming an issue down the line,
Yeah.
So earlier you said that you think AI could cause problems in the future. Tell me what you meant by that.
Well, there's a parallel to be drawn, I think, between people, between your age and my age, young adults now and future young adults, because, I take it you and I had access to the internet at a young age.
Right. I did.
And we are seeing these problems in Gen Z sort of rising, be they social issues or economic issues or, just, I don't know, issues operating in the adult world in a way that isn't influenced by the internet. And I think AI will definitely exacerbate those problems for future generations.
And what are some of the problems that you think it will exacerbate?
So a specific problem that I see would be less critical thinking. You can take, for instance, Spark Notes, book summaries for kids doing book reports, and they haven't actually read the book. How much more will that problem be, exacerbated for kids using AI?
Right.
Especially when some of its information is inaccurate because it's just pulling from a data set that is comprised of millions of pieces of data, some of which might be conflicting.
Right. So it's almost like some of the things that they'll be telling you will be subpartial facts and not, the full information or giving you, it just gives you what you want to hear. Like, you know what I mean? And honestly, with AI, you can almost convince it to say, like, after you ask it a certain amount of times, you can convince it to say what you want to hear or to get from it. And so how do you know that what you're getting from the AI is completely factual information? And then you can take that information and then run with it. And that can affect how you move about things, and what you think is factual might not actually be factual. And yeah, I just see that being a problem, especially with certain career fields, right? You go to college to get a certain education. Some people might not care, about their education. So they just want to get the degree. And honestly, you get out what you put in. You can use AI to your benefit if you're struggling in a way. You can use it to your benefit to help you, but once you start abusing it, then, like I said, you're going to get out what you put in. And if you're not doing the work on your own to figure out and problem solve and learn the material, then once you graduate, what are you really going to know? Now, say you're someone going into the medical field. That's kind of scary to think about, right? If you have people going to school to learn medicine and taking care of your physical health, and they learned everything from a AI software.
Yeah.
I mean, would you trust somebody to take care of you when you're, sick or ill, and you don't know if they actually put in the work in college to get that degree, or if everything they did was based off what AI had to say? Would you trust somebody to take care of you?
Probably not.
No, that would be a huge concern.
It is. Yeah, it creates an opportunity for people to put in less effort, even if it's something like the medical field, where you should actually be, getting knowledge firsthand, being able to just have a machine tell you what it thinks whatever the medicine ought to be is going to pose a real problem.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder, like, what can educators do to make sure that the people they're passing through actually know the material, and they didn't just, cheat or have a software write their papers or do the tests, because then a lot of tests are online too now. So how do we know that students aren't, pulling from another, what do you call it? Let's just say pulling from AI to get their answers. I mean, are there restrictions that can be put in place? Are there restrictions that are put in place right now? I mean, I'm not sure because I'm not trying to go into the medical field, but it's a thing that comes to mind. Like, are they doing anything to make sure that our future is secure, especially in a area such as your health? You know what I mean?
Yeah. As far as measures that can be put in place, it might be considered an extreme option, but just having everything be pen and paper and having to work on campus, because it's not reasonable for a professor to be looking over everyone's shoulder all the time to make sure they aren't using AI.
Right.
This past spring I took a public speaking class, and our teacher said at the outset, don't use AI to write your speeches, I can tell. But what happens when the technology gets to a point where you can't tell?
Right.
And even then, it was just on the honor system.
Yeah, and it's good that you said that, because I was actually speaking to someone a few weeks ago who deals with like AI softwares, and they're actually in college right now as well. And I was talking about the fact that teachers have told us that they can tell when what you have submitted is not your own work. And I was like, I would think that would cause people to have some type of hesitation to submit AI written essays or whatever kind of homework. But they told me that that's just a lie. And I don't know if that's true for every teacher, but they told me that they're telling you that to kind of deter you from wanting to do that in the first place, to like scare you away from submitting something that isn't your work. But I'm not sure if they actually have technology that can detect when something is AI written, because even when you write something, you still do pull from sources. So I feel that sometimes what you might submit can still come up as AI, and that might not always be the case. So it's kind of tricky. You don't know if, to really be able to tell, you have to know what the student is writing. And say you're in college, you're not going to be able to have the time to look at every little detail of all of your students in the way that they write. So ultimately, you might not know if it's AI written or not. And some teachers might just be saying that to scare their classes, So
yeah, there's a disconnect because teachers in the field now, probably came from a more rigorous school system. So they're having that in mind, that the students will respect the teacher when they say something like that.
You would think.
But I hate to say it, but a lot of kids these days don't have as much respect for teachers as they should.
Right.
What happens when they don't care and they use AI to submit their assignments anyway? Yeah.
When it comes to AI and creativity, I see pros and cons that can go with it, right? So I like to make music, and one software I use to make music is BandLab, and I record my songs on there. But one issue I've had with producing it is I haven't always been the best at mixing, and I don't necessarily always like the way it sounds, right? But recently, they've come out with more technology and tools on that software, which is AI generated, which pretty much does the mixing for you. So in a way, to me, that's the benefit. Like, I can write lyrics, I can record it, and now instead of having to go to a professional mixer or, producer, I can have my own personal software that I use do that for me in my home studio. And I see that as a great tool to use, that they've updated it like that. So not a lot of musicians can use that to their advantage to produce music while making it sound clean and sound good enough to put out. But then at the same time, there's more advanced AI softwares where people are having AI completely, like, they can't sing, but they'll have AI produce the music for them. And you have AI generated artists out here producing hit singles, and to, popular artists who do everything themselves, that's kind of offensive to them. They're like, I put in this work, I have this gift, I have this skill of creativity that I use and share to the world, but now I have a robot just coming into my work field and almost feeling like they're taking over or could replace them possibly without even having to put forth the effort and the energy that they have to put in themselves. And, I've heard different arguments when it comes to it, like, oh, well, it's still music, or they still wrote the lyrics. But then you have AI that's writing lyrics for you. So where will the authenticity be in the future when it comes to any form of creativity? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I hope that enough people have the sense to realize, oh, if it's AI, then maybe I'll listen to it, but it's not real artistry because it doesn't come from the human heart.
Right. Do you think you'll be able to tell the difference, like when somebody's created the music themselves or if a robot has created it? Do you listen to music like that?
Yeah. I came across an album on YouTube that I realized was AI, and you know, that loses my interest.
So you wouldn't even be interested anymore once you find out it's not a real human behind the song.
Yeah, I would lose interest. I mean, not if it was, a production element that isn't the songwriting itself, like you were
Hmm.
talking about, but not, you know, going in with the understanding that there wasn't any dedication or inspiration or whatever involved in the creation of this thing, whatever it is, then it loses meaning for me.
And then it really started off with, I guess you could say, auto tune. But a lot of people
Yeah.
didn't see a problem with that because they feel like it makes your vocals sound better. And but it starts there, but where does it end? Because now we've gone beyond auto tune where it's just a complete robot behind the vocals. And I mean, even on the radio, some of these songs that people are listening to are not made by a human. And I can't always tell because I've listened to some artists that I thought they were a real person, but come to find out they're not. And I'm not too sure how I feel about that yet. I do think it will be concerned as far as like I said, the authenticity of creativity being taken away as far as that. But like I said, there's still pros to it. Like I use BandLab, I use the tools that it has to mix my audios. Some might have a problem with that. They might say,
Hmm.
well, you should learn how to do that yourself and figure it out so it's fully, your skills that you're putting into it. But I surely don't mind using that because it makes the process easier for me, you know. And then when it comes to social media and the film industry, AI is going to have an effect on that, don't you think?
Oh yeah.
I mean, we can even see it now that, especially on social media, that some of the commercials and sponsorships and ads are not even real anymore. And then I know I don't like it because it makes things less personable to me. And I know that they're doing it to save money so you don't have to pay an actor, pay to have a set directed, and it's a lot more that goes into it. So to them they're saving. It's more money in their pockets, but I think down in the future, people might like it less and less, They might want to see real people on the screen, real people on their phone, because we already live in an isolated society or generation right now.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, things have changed. Before, most people didn't get a phone till high school. Like, I'm sure my parents didn't get a phone until they were like 18 or, past that. But now you see 3, 4, 5-year-olds having the phone like it's their right hand.
Yeah.
And what is that going to look like down the line? It's going to become second nature to be on your phone and to
Yeah.
utilize that as normal, I mean, especially when
Yeah.
you're raising kids to use it in that manner, to use it that often. I mean, as a parent in yourself, you might have to put up the guidelines to decide what's best for your child's future. And obviously, once you become an adult, that's on you, what you do with your time. But I feel like when you're dealing with children, it could definitely have a negative effect if you don't have regulations, And they have
Yeah.
screen time and stuff like that, but how many parents really use it?
Yeah. People have been talking about how we're chronically online for probably more than a year now. I mean, people have been talking about it for more than a year, but just think about social problems. Just how we interact is way different than it was 20 or 30 years ago.
Right.
Uh, and how much worse will that be because of AI? One thing I thought of, earlier in our conversation is how these programs, even if what you're looking for is information, it gives it to you in, what tries to be a human speech pattern. Like, well, the answer is this, that, and the other thing. Let me know if you need more help. The way that it does that to try to convince you that it's a person, and there are other AI programs that, they're your AI friend or whatever it is.
Yes.
How will that impact people? I think it will impact people very negatively. It'll cause more isolation and, actually interacting in the human real life world will be a novelty.
Yeah. Yeah, especially now because a lot of AI, artificial intelligence creators are trying to design specific softwares to be more human-like. So it's kind of like they're doing it in a way to make you want to engage with AI on a normal basis more.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, people are attached to their phones and we're living in an isolated society, right? And so you're dealing with a lot of people who are dealing with loneliness or, things of that nature. And so now you have these softwares that are targeting people. Well, I don't know if I want to say they're targeting people, but they're being designed to attract people who are kind of desperate for that kind of connection. And it's like a artificial connection because it's artificial intelligence, right? So now if you feel like you can't get that from somebody in real life, you're not even worried about that anymore because you're going to run to your phone or run to that app or run to that AI and have that connection with a robot instead of a connection with a person. You know what I mean? And what kind of effects will that have on people's mental health if they're dealing with robots or softwares more than they're dealing with people? What would that turn people into? How would they start interacting with humans in general if they're not used to interacting or socializing with humans? If they're just stuck socializing with their technology,
Yeah.
And there have been some cases already where it's had an extreme negative impact, especially on children. And children are vulnerable anyways.
Yeah.
So especially in puberty, in that age range, right? So if you have a child that is desperate to have connection, and then you have AI that's designed to give you the connection that you want, what will that do to them mentally as they're growing, right? If they start talking to AI in a manner where they feel more comfortable with them than they feel with their parents, they start leaning on them for advice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what kind of advice for the real world can AI really give you at the end of the day? It could turn to something negative.
Yeah, I think it's a real cause for concern. We've already seen, unfortunately, this sense of, everyone's just an avatar behind the screen when you're on the internet. They're not real human beings with lives and thoughts and experiences of their own. AI will just, take so much more out of the human experience. Who cares if it's artificial or not? Everything might as well be artificial if you're on the internet. So having these, artificial intelligence, entities sort of in the spaces we inhabit more and more, which is online, I think that's a real danger. It will make authentic human connection feel less authentic by the AI trying to make it authentic.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, you can even look back to the way technology had an effect on us mentally when we were in COVID, because nobody could really have, relationships with people outside of their household. So they were more dependent on connecting through online.
Absolutely. pretend your computer's busted for the day and skip your Zoom class, skip your meeting. Put off that project at work for a few more weeks. Who cares? You don't have to actually come face to face with the person.
Yeah, and I think part of that is what drove a lot of people to being more attached to technology in the first place. It was already becoming more of a problem, but like once we were in isolation, it's like, well, what else do you have to go to, right? And we live in a time where almost everybody has access to the internet. So, I mean, even more than reading a book, people hardly even read a book. They'll rather read something online. Yeah, and then that goes back to the education part of it. If you're not reading, how will you be able to write? How will you be able to learn? How will you be able to problem solve? And at this point, like you said, students don't respect teachers as much as they have in the past, and teachers are probably not going to care as much about making sure the students are getting everything they need if they feel that the students don't care in the first place. Because it's easier to care when you feel like the students really want to learn, right? I mean, when you went to school, you were more engaged, right?
Yeah.
You didn't have a phone ringing or notifications to check and whatnot. And that was before AI. So
Yeah. I think stifles is the word I'm looking for. When COVID first happened, people in high school or their first few years of college had that social element stifled. And AI will just stifle so much more of our human experience.
Yeah.
Socially.
Yeah, I agree. Well, it's been a good conversation, Luke. This has been the end of LTU's Perspective episode on artificial intelligence. Thank you for listening.